They say secrets have a way of coming to light, and when they do, they can either break you or set you free. This is the story of Astrid and Daniel, a love story built on secrets, betrayal, and regret. Daniel was 25 when his life changed forever. He had always been a sex addict, chasing pleasure without thinking of the consequences. To keep up with his reckless lifestyle, he started using local medicines, pills like Viagra, to boost his performance. But what he thought was harmless fun turned into a nightmare. The drugs destroyed him, leaving him infertile, unable to father a child. When he found out, depression hit him like a wave. He felt less of a man, broken, incomplete. After years of struggling, he finally accepted his fate. Then he met Astrid. And for the first time in a long time, he had hope. Astrid was everything Daniel had ever wanted, beautiful, kind, and full of life. They fell in love deeply. After a year of dating, Daniel proposed. But there was something he never told her, his biggest secret. He wanted to, but fear held him back. What if she left him like the others? He couldn't take that risk. Daniel was hard-working, kind, and loving, but he wasn't wealthy. Astrid had grown up around friends who lived in luxury, designer clothes, expensive vacations, and partners who spoiled them with gifts. Whenever she was around them, she felt small, almost embarrassed by the modest life she shared with Daniel. She started questioning whether love was really enough. Then, temptation came in the form of a wealthy older man who slid into her DMs. He showered her with attention, compliments, and promises of a lavish lifestyle. At first, she hesitated, but the more she compared her life with Daniel to the glamorous lives of her friends, the more she felt like she was missing out. She wanted to experience what it felt like to be adored and spoiled, so she gave in. She started an affair, all while planning her wedding to Daniel. At the time, she convinced herself it was just a fling, something harmless that wouldn't affect her relationship with Daniel. Then, it happened. Months later, she found out she was pregnant. But whose baby was it, Daniel's or Leonard's? The fear consumed her. What if she gave birth, and the child wasn't Daniel's? What if her secret was exposed? After days of thinking, she made a choice. She aborted the pregnancy. At first, Astrid felt relieved. The weight of her secret had been suffocating her, and now that the pregnancy was gone, she thought she could finally breathe. She convinced herself that she had done the right thing, that she had protected her future with Daniel. But the relief didn't last long. As days turned into weeks, guilt started creeping in. She couldn't escape the thoughts of what if. What if she had kept the baby? What if Daniel never found out? What if this was her only chance at motherhood? Every time she saw a mother with a child, she felt a pang of regret. She told herself she would be more careful, that when she and Daniel got married, they would eventually have kids of their own. That belief kept her sane. She thought the past was behind her, but the past has a way of catching up. They eventually got married. Few months after their wedding, she began trying for a baby. As months passed and she still wasn't pregnant, fear gripped her. She started wondering if the abortion had damaged her body. She blamed herself. Maybe this was her punishment. No pregnancy, no baby. Month after month, nothing. Daniel noticed the change in her. He could see the pain in her eyes, the forced smiles whenever someone mentioned kids. But deep down, he blamed himself. So he did what any loving husband would. He held her close and whispered, "It's okay, babe. These things take time. We'll keep trying, and if it doesn't happen, we'll explore other options. What matters is us." Astrid would nod, leaning into his embrace. But deep inside, guilt was eating her alive. Had the abortion taken away her ability to conceive? Had she destroyed her only chance at motherhood? The thought kept her up at night. But what she didn't know was that Daniel was carrying a secret of his own. He knew he had been infertile for years, and yet he had convinced himself it wouldn't matter. That one day, Astrid might bring up adoption, and they could move forward. When the doctor finally confirmed her worst fear, that she could no longer conceive, her world came crashing down. Regret consumed her. She realized that the very thing she had tried to erase was the one thing she now desperately wished she had. If she had kept the child, she would have been a mother by now. She wouldn't be living with this emptiness, this pain of knowing she had thrown away the only chance she had. The regret was unbearable. And worst of all, she had no one to blame but herself. One evening, while Daniel was in the living room, Astrid sat in the bedroom, her voice trembling as she spoke on the phone with her mother. "Mom, I messed up," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I had an affair. I got pregnant, and I aborted it. Mom, I think the abortion ruined me. I can't get pregnant. I should have kept that baby. Even if it wasn't Daniel's, at least I would have been a mother. I didn't know I'd never be able to have children. Mom, what have I done? That baby might have been my only chance." Daniel froze. His breath caught in his throat. His heart pounded in his chest. He had only come to the room to grab something, but now he couldn't move. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Astrid had been pregnant, and she had gotten rid of the baby. Anger surged through his veins. His fists clenched at his sides. He slowly stepped into the room, his face cold, his voice sharp. "You were pregnant?" Astrid gasped, turning around. She hadn't realized he was there. She dropped the phone, her hands shaking. "Daniel, I can explain." "You don't have to," he cut her off. "I heard everything." Tears streamed down her face as she fell to her knees. "Daniel, please. I made a mistake. I regret it every day. Please, forgive me." Daniel stood there, his heart torn apart. He was hurt, angry. He couldn't hold back his thoughts and disappointment. "You had a child growing inside you, Astrid," he said bitterly, his voice thick with frustration. "A child I would have raised as my own. Why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you pin it on me?" Astrid stared at him in shock, not expecting those words. "What are you saying?" He let out a bitter chuckle and shook his head. "You wouldn't understand." Despite her betrayal, despite everything, he decided to forgive her. After all, they were now on the same boat, both infertile, both broken by their past choices. Astrid felt a wave of relief, grateful that Daniel had chosen to let it go. She vowed to be a better wife to him, to leave her past behind and make their marriage work. But months later, everything changed. While cleaning the house one afternoon, Astrid stumbled upon a folder buried deep in a drawer. Out of curiosity, she flipped through the papers, and then her heart nearly stopped. It was Daniel's medical records, a fertility test. The results were clear. He had been infertile for years. Astrid's hands trembled as she read the report over and over again, as if hoping the words would somehow change. A storm of emotions swirled inside her: shock, confusion, anger. He knew. He had always known. That night she confronted him, slamming the papers onto the table. "So this is it, huh? This is the truth you were hiding from me?" Her voice was filled with rage, her eyes burning with betrayal. "Daniel, you knew you were infertile this whole time, and you didn't tell me?" Daniel sat still, his face unreadable. He sighed, knowing there was no way to escape this now. "Astrid, what do you want me to say?" he asked tiredly. "Say that you ruined my life!" she yelled. "Say that if I had known the truth, I never would have gone through with the abortion. At least then, I would have had a child. But no, you kept quiet and let me destroy my only chance of being a mother." Daniel's expression hardened. He looked her dead in the eye and scoffed. "I ruined your life?" he repeated. "No, Astrid. You ruined your own life. You cheated on me. You got pregnant with another man's child and had abortion that left you unable to conceive. That was your decision. That was your mistake. And now you have the guts to stand here and claim I put you in this predicament?" Astrid shook her head, tears streaming down her face. If I had known you were infertile, I would have kept that pregnancy. It didn't matter who the father was. At least I would have had a child." Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "Exactly. If you had pinned that pregnancy on me like other women do, I would have accepted it. We wouldn't even be having this discussion right now." Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I hate you, Daniel." Daniel simply stared at her, his expression cold. "Well, that makes two of us." After their heated confrontation, Astrid couldn't shake the feeling that their marriage was beyond saving. The weight of betrayal, regret, and resentment was too much. She blamed Daniel for keeping such a huge secret from her, but deep down, she also blamed herself for the choices she had made. The affair, the abortion, it all led her to this moment. She felt trapped in a life she never imagined for herself. One night, after weeks of tension and silence, she made a decision. "I can't do this anymore, Daniel," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's too much damage, too many lies, too much hurt. Maybe we were never meant to be." Daniel stared at her, his heart sinking. He had feared this moment, but he also understood. He had kept the truth from her, and she had betrayed him in her own way. They had both made mistakes, mistakes that now felt impossible to fix. "If that's what you want," he said quietly, pain evident in his eyes, "I won't stop you." And with that, Astrid left. At first, she felt free, as if she had finally escaped the emotional turmoil of their broken marriage. She thought she would move on, meet someone new, maybe even find happiness again. But as time passed, reality set in. She went on a few dates, but every time, the same fear crept in. What if they asked about kids? What if they wanted a family? Could she ever find a man who would accept her, knowing she could never give him children? Would any man truly commit to her, knowing she had been unfaithful in her past? Doubt consumed her. As much as she hated to admit it, Daniel had been a good man to her. He had worked hard to give her a good life, even when it wasn't the luxurious life she dreamed of. He had loved her despite her flaws, despite her mistakes. And now, after everything, she was alone, with no guarantee that another man would ever want to build a life with her. One evening, after weeks of battling her thoughts, she picked up her phone and called Daniel. "Can we talk?" she asked hesitantly. Daniel was surprised, but agreed to meet. When they sat across from each other, Astrid's eyes were filled with regret. "I thought leaving was the right thing," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But the truth is, I don't know if I'll ever find someone who would accept me the way you did. I don't know if any man will want me now that I can't have children. I was wrong to leave, and I was wrong to think that walking away would fix everything." Daniel watched her carefully. He had been heartbroken when she left, but seeing her now, vulnerable and honest, something inside him softened. He still loved her, despite everything. "Astrid, we both ruined things," he said finally. "We both made mistakes that can't be undone. But maybe we can still fix what's left." Tears welled in Astrid's eyes. "Do you think we can try again?" she whispered. Daniel let out a slow breath. It wouldn't be easy. Their marriage was scarred. But he knew one thing. They had both suffered enough. And maybe, just maybe, they could still build something meaningful together. "Yes," he said, "let's try again." With a fresh perspective, they decided to stop dwelling on what they had lost and focus on what they could still have. After long discussions, they agreed that family wasn't just about having biological children. They could still be parents. So, they made the decision to adopt. For the first time in a long time, hope filled their hearts. Their story hadn't been perfect, but it wasn't over. Together, they would create a new chapter, one built on honesty, acceptance, and a second chance at love.